I want to talk about something that I see happening in mixed faith marriages for those who are LDS or Mormon. When there's a faith transition and then a mixed faith marriage, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot that needs to be discussed. And this can be an important part of the relationship where connections are forged, where listening skills are really practiced and enhanced, or it can be a dumping ground. So I want to talk about the two. When you use, all of the new things to talk about, because there's this faith transition and there's mixed faith marriage, it can be an opportunity to develop vulnerability. And I'm talking about the good kind, the Brene Brown kind, the type of vulnerability that's the birthplace of connection and love and wholeheartedness and all of that. And then where that moves into where you're taking responsibility for your own stuff, for your own emotions. You're letting your spouse take responsibility for their own stuff, for their own emotions. And then what this creates is where it enhances the relationship and that you know each other in a better, more deep, in a new area. Another way that sometimes this can look like, and this is the one to watch for, is it becomes more of like an emotional dumping ground. When this is happening, there's usually this conscious or sometimes subconscious wanting the spouse to fix or to convince them, to try to fix the spouse, fix the situation, or convince the spouse, convince them to be different. And in this, we're not taking responsibility for our own emotions. We're maybe dumping that on our spouse, wanting to use them as an emotional crutch, want to maybe blame them for how we're feeling or what's happening. So if you're in a mixed faith marriage and there are things to talk about, I think you should talk about them. But watch, are you doing it from this place of vulnerability, taking responsibility for your own stuff, where you can ultimately really use it to know each other and develop and deepen connection? Or are you using it as like this emotional dumping ground, wanting to fix them, wanting to convince them, using them, as being dependent on them emotionally, like that your emotions are dependent on their response, their validation? They have very different results. It creates a very different quality in your marriage. One deepens, strengthens, makes it better, and one can be somewhat destructive. It can be draining. It can cause resentment. If you've got things to talk about your marriage, and you probably do, especially if there's a faith transition, take some time and think about how you want to approach that. Okay, this is Brooke Booth, life coach for Mormons in a mixed faith marriage.